Hello, I'm Hazel. I'm from Zimbabwe, but currently staying in South Africa for my studies at Rhodes University. I'm doing my second year master's in research psychology and also tutoring first, second, and third years in psychology. I'm interested in teaching English as a foreign language or English as a second language. I'm also interested in teaching Shona, my home language in Zimbabwe, and also social studies subjects like criminology, psychology, and social work. Today, I'm going to be focused more on psychological disorders, which is under the psychology course. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can follow up with everything that I'm going to present. And just to be on the same page with you, I need you to ask me questions way on every areas that you don't understand or that you need me to repeat on. So yeah, let's get to the lesson right now. Like I said, our lesson is going to be on psychological disorders and treatment. It's a continuation of the topics that I've been teaching in the previous few weeks. So, what I'm going to start with is just the learning outcomes or the learning goals for this specific lesson. The first learning outcome is to describe how stressful life events may be linked to disorders such as depression and anxiety. The second one being describing the main symptoms of anxiety disorders. Thirdly, explaining the different types of anxiety disorders. And finally, describing the different kinds of effective treatments for anxiety disorders. There is a link that I've just attached to this file, which you can also click to learn more about anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders are a class of clinical disorders marked by feelings and thoughts which are characterized by are characterized by uncontrollability and unpredictability over aversive life events or of excessive apprehension and anxiety. They are classified under the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the fifth edition, and also published by the American Psychiatric Association. So, just like any other disease or any other illness, one cannot just diagnose or just treat anxiety disorders or disorders in general, but it has to be classified under the DSM-5, which is provided by the American Psychiatric Association. Everyone experiences anxiety and fear at times. These are normal and helpful human emotions that help us deal with danger. So, almost every individual faces fear in life, and each and every person is unique. The way we deal with anger or the way we deal with different emotions is totally different from one person to another. But however, some people experience excessive and irrational anxiety and worries that become ongoing and distressing and that interfere with their daily lives. So, like I said, there is no point of just diagnosing someone as having a disorder if it's just a once off event or circumstance or issue, right? I'm just going to use my pen to my highlighter or laser pointer to just make sure that you follow up with everything that I'm teaching today. These are some of the symptoms of anxiety disorders. The first one is panic or anxiety attacks or a fear of these attacks. Physical anxiety reactions, for example, trembling, sweating, difficulties breathing or nausea, etc. Avoidance behavior. A person may go to extreme lengths to avoid a situation that they think could bring on anxiety or panic. So before I talk about the different types of anxiety disorders, I just want to make sure that you still understand everything that we are going to discuss or that we have discussed in this lesson. Please make sure you ask questions or you ask for clarification on certain things that I'm going to discuss or that I've discussed in the previous slides. So the first type of anxiety disorder that we're going to discuss today is post-traumatic stress disorder. This involves enduring psychological disturbances attributed to the experience of a major traumatic event. Some of the experiences that people face, people with PTSD, are flashbacks, nightmares, increased sense of vulnerability, anger, guilt, etc. Most women or men who had experienced rape, abuse, natural disaster, and witnessed someone's death, and someone never got professional help, are said to be carriers of PTSD. So it's very important to seek professional assistance or professional help if you've encountered a very traumatic experience. The second type of anxiety disorder that I'm going to discuss about is generalized anxiety disorder, also shortened as GAD or GAD. It's characterized by chronic, constant worry in almost situations. So take note of this word chronic and also constant worry. So if something is said to be chronic, it has happened for a certain period of time or for a very long period of time. I'm going to talk about that later on. A person may be diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder if the anxiety and worry have been present most days over a 6-month period and the person finds it difficult to control their anxiety. So, like I said, chronic is not something that's just once off. Chronic is something that has happened in a long period of time. So, the period of time that is used to say someone is generalized anxiety disorder is at least 6 months period. So it's not just something that has happened today and you say, oh, now I have generalized anxiety disorder. These are some of the things that happen or that characterize generalized anxiety disorder. So there is excessive anxiety, difficulty in controlling such worries, feelings of fatigue, restlessness, irritability, difficult concentrating and sleeping. So, like I said in the second slide, feelings of fatigue, restlessness, irritability are some of the physical symptoms of anxiety disorders in general. Then the third anxiety disorder that I'm going to discuss about is panic disorder. This one is characterized by intense fear and anxiety in the absence. So take note, in the absence of danger. And it is accompanied by strong physical symptoms. Panic disorder may be diagnosed if panic attacks are frequent. Again, take note of this, are frequent. It's not something that is occurred once. And if there is a strong and persistent fear of another attack occurring. So these are some of the symptoms, for example, difficulty with breathing, skin feeling tingly and numb, heart beating very fast, and also ear ringing in your ears. These are some of the symptoms of a panic disorder. The another type of disorder that I'm going to talk about is phobic disorders. These are characterized by these are characterized by intense fear of, please take note, I just like missed the word fear here, characterized by intense fear of a specific object or situation. Specific phobia is a persistent, again, you can see that the word persistent and irrational fear keep on occurring in the anxiety disorders. Please take note of that. Specific phobia has a persistent and irrational fear of a particular object or situation. They may fear animals, places, or people. Fear of the object or situation is so severe that a person may experience physical symptoms and panic attacks. So panic attacks are one of the common symptoms in all the disorders, the anxiety disorders that we have discussed so far. They usually develop in late adolescence or early adulthood. Fearing to be in places which are perceived difficult escaping or receiving help. This is called agoraphobia. We will talk more about the specific phobias in the next lesson. Then the last but not least is obsessive compulsive disorder. This is characterized by persistent, uncontrollable intrusion of unwanted thoughts, obsessions, and urges to engage in senseless rituals, that is compulsion. So you can see that there is a repetition of the word uncontrollable and also persistent happening time after time, right? Then obsession centers around hating others, personal failures, suicides. Then compulsion relieves anxiety temporarily and involves stereotyped rituals. Take note of that. For example, rechecking or redoing things such as cleaning again, repetitive hand washing. Just a fun fact. My mom does this. Whenever I clean, she always like cleans after myself just to make sure that her house is spotless. So yeah, but she hasn't been diagnosed. Please, she hasn't been diagnosed as someone having obsessive compulsive disorder. Lastly, I'm going to talk about some of the effective treatments that can be implemented for people that have been diagnosed with anxiety disorders. The first one is cognitive behavioral therapy. Before I briefly explain them, we are going to discuss more on these different treatments in our next lesson, and also the different therapies that are available for people with mental health disorders. So the first one is cognitive behavioral therapy. This one aims to change patterns of thinking, beliefs, and behaviors that may trigger anxiety. The second one is exposure therapy, which involves gradually exposing a person to situations that trigger anxiety using a fear hierarchy. This is called, take note, this is called systematic desensitization. We will talk more about this in our next lessons. The third one is anxiety management and relaxation techniques. For example, deep muscle relaxation, meditation, breathing exercises, and counseling. Last but not least, is medication, which include antidepressants and antidepressants mostly. So this is what we had to discuss briefly in this lesson. Thank you so much for paying attention. Thank you so much for all the questions that you have asked, and I'll meet you in our next lesson. Just make sure you click the YouTube link that I attached to this document, and also make sure you read the prescribed textbook for you to understand more on the different anxiety disorders. Our next lesson is going to be on mood disorders. Enjoy your week and enjoy all the days, and make sure you study hard to make sure that you understand everything that we discuss. And also don't forget to just drop me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.